Hello and welcome to the Palmer Performance Workshop. This is part 2 of the Yamaha R1 Track bike build. In this video we're going to be taking off the standard brake lines, draining the brake fluid out, bypassing the ABS system basically. Part of that means we need to take the fuel tank off, we'll take the airbox off, and there's still a few other bits and pieces that we're going to take off from the road bike that we don't need anymore. So keep watching. So that's the fuel tank off and out of the way. We did have some tissue down here to catch the fuel. You'll notice we've also taken the airbox lid off. That's pretty straightforward, just screws around the outside, a few connectors on top. There's another fuel line that feeds the secondary set of injectors which sit in the top of the airbox. That disconnects the same way by just popping this clip and then pulling it off. Again, you know, fuel spilling everywhere from doing that, so catch that with tissue. I tend to move these pipes up like that. That kind of stops the last bits dribbling out. Yamaha, this is something they came out with in around 2007, which is basically variable height velocity stacks. They run these on R6s and R1s since way back when. The idea is that at low RPM, the velocity stacks are down, and that basically makes your inlet tract longer, which is better for mid-range power. Then when you get nearer the upper end of the rev range, these move up out of the way, and those shorter ones down there do all the work and effectively give you a shorter inlet length, which is better for peak power. So, and that's something we play with quite a lot, different ones of these depending on the engine spec, different lengths, and also on the ECU mapping, adjusting at which point in the RPM they go up and down. Obviously standard air filter in this at the moment, that just pops out. We'll replace that with a K&N race one, just to get a bit better airflow and a few more ponies. The airbox itself comes off. There's a couple of bolts here, down in each of these sort of little gaps. There's some bolts that you have to undo. You need quite a long 5mm Allen key to get down into them. Disconnect crankcase breather pipe here. There is another pipe just on the side there that we disconnected, and then the connector for the servo motor for the variable height bell mouse, and that is literally that out of the way. Here obviously we've got our throttle bodies, and that's obviously the air intake that comes through from the front air duct into the airbox. And you'll see there's a couple of things to note here. This is like what we call an evap canister. So it takes any sort of evaporation from the fuel tank, feeds it back into the inlet manifold. It's another sort of emissions related things for road bikes. So we will take all of that off, and where it joins into the inlet manifold there, we'll disconnect that and blank that off with a little silicone blanking plug. Up here, you'll see on the throttle bodies, this pipe here, that is the one that we showed you on the first video. There it is. That runs to the vacuum valve in the air intake, which we're not using anymore. So we need to obviously blank that off as well. We'll take this out of the way. And these are the brake pipes for the front ABS system. So obviously they run up to the ABS pump here, down there, up to the master cylinder, into the calipers. They kind of run down the side of the frame, down the side of the engine, and then they sort of go underneath this bit here. So we'll take this out, that'll give us access to that. This pipe, this is an air bleed pipe. Basically, that takes air from the airbox and bleeds it into the exhaust system, or into the cylinder head, into the exhaust side of the cylinder head. And again, that's another emissions related thing. it effectively kind of makes the bike look like it's running cleaner than it is. Again, that's something that we will remove for the track, and we'll once we get this stuff out of the way, we'll explain a little bit more about how we go about that on most bikes. So there we go, created a bit of space in here now. You'll see we've removed this air injection system, AIS system. There was a solenoid thing which sat there. So the pipe from the airbox came down into it, and then it split off into these two silver, and they're actually like a little reed block valve on top of the rocker cover. Now you can see we've just blocked it off with some silicone blanking caps. There are companies that make new little covers which go on here, so you unbolt these covers, take the reed valves out, and bolt these new ones on. Which, yeah, okay, they look nice and everything, but these little silicone caps are a couple of quid. Literally just pop them straight on, reuse the clips, and away you go. And then obviously on the airbox side, we just, you can see there, we just blanked that off as well. Obviously while we're at it, we've removed that evac canister, another little silicone blanking plug on there, and then we've removed that pipe which went off to the intake flapper valve, and there's just another little blanking plug that we've put on the pipe off the throttle body there. So now that's all out of the way, you can see these are the front ABS brake lines. So we will now move on to getting the brake system drained. So this is my little vacuum bleeder setup. Now that started life as a Sealy vacuum bleeder, but the way they create the vacuum is they have like a air blower which you connect your compressor to, which blows air across the top and then sucks air out sort of as it drives past. That then creates the sort of vacuum to pull your fluid through. Now I always found it was a little bit on the weak side. It was obviously better than nothing. And I thought, well, the best way to make that or improve it and make it better is to actually just put a motor powered vacuum pump on it. So this little 12 volt vacuum pump is just off eBay, and all I've done is just put a switch on the side of it and then a little DC power adapter, and I can literally just turn it on there, pumps away, and it creates a vacuum. So I'll crack off the bleed nipple, as you can see, just start sucking it through. And like I said on the earlier video, with the ABS systems and how much fluid is in it and how long the lines are and all the places you've got to kind of disconnect it to get the ABS lines out of the way, this is the best way I've found to get as much fluid out of the system as possible and not make a mess when you disconnect everything. So we'll let that do its job on that one caliper until it starts pulling through air, and then we'll swap over to the other side and drain the other caliper out, and then start looking at actually disconnecting the hoses from up at the ABS pump and splitting them where they go down the side of the engine there. Just a random little note, this is one of my favourite things in the workshop really. It's just an extension lead on a reel, and you literally pull it out and use it pretty much anywhere in the workshop, which I find pretty handy. From Sealy, reels back in, keeps it out of the way, nice and handy. So we've been working on the bike this morning. The customer came up just after lunch along with a boot full of parts for the build, and I thought I'd just lay them all out and sort of run through them for you guys. So let's start over here. He's decided he wanted to replace the standard air intake, so he's gone for a Moto Holders clock bracket with very nice carbon fibre air duct. Looks pretty trick. Also significantly lighter than the standard metal version which comes on the standard bike. A few rather juicy Brembo brake upgrades. So we've gone for an RCS 19 master cylinder. This for me is like my default master cylinder. There is a newer version out called the Corsa Quarter, but I'm not a huge fan of those, quite like these. We're also going to get a TWM remote adjuster for this, so that'll do away with the adjuster knob for adjusting your span, and puts a little adjuster on the left hand handlebar instead. As you can see, very shiny, very lovely Brembo plated calipers. GP4RX, these are pretty standard caliper upgrade really. The pads that come in with them are a double H pad. We will actually take those out and replace them with a dual sintered pad by TRW, a brand that we've used for a lot of years, tried and tested. Discs, Brembo T-drives. Everybody knows Brembo, everybody probably knows T-drives. Really good brake discs used in race paddocks the world over. We're also going to pop on the front axle. This is one of our own front axle pull cups, and that basically slots in there and then does up and just makes it easier pulling the front spindle out when you're doing a wheel change. Now we move on to suspension. He's gone for the original gold Öhlins, so we've got a brand new TTX shock absorber here. We'll probably change the rear spring on this to something that will be slightly more suited to him and his riding capabilities. So we'll set that all up. We've got loads of data from using Öhlins TTX shocks, because basically the setup is still pretty much the same as when the R1 came out in 2015. So we've got loads of knowledge on there of how to set the bike up best for him. He's also got a Öhlins SDO47 steering damper to replace the electronic one. So manually adjustable steering damper, really nice little unit and looks trick. In the box there is actually a little bypass plug, because the standard steering damper is electronic. When you unplug it, the ECU actually gets upset and throws a fault code. So with the steering damper in the box comes a little resistor pack which you plug in, which deletes the fault code. We won't actually need to use that because when we remap the standard ECU, we can turn that fault code off. And then the next piece, he has managed to get hold of a set of I can never remember, FGRT 219 Öhlins forks. So they look very similar to what you would get in the R1M. So they're, you know, gold uppers and the nice anodized silver lowers. The difference being is that these have what's called well, they have a 30mm cartridge kit and a NIX 30 cartridge kit, which is a really good cartridge kit for club racing and track day riders. Gives loads of feel, loads of plushness, and works really well. So by the time we've put those calipers on those forks, it is going to look something special. Right, so moving on from that, we've got a whole load more parts over here. A lot of these parts have come courtesy of Reactive Parts, a UK-based company which supplies a lot of top brands. We work with them a lot over the years and always a top company to deal with. So mainly for the chassis parts, we've gone for Bonamici. It's Italian-made stuff and the quality is just mega. So the customers decided to go for this Bonamici top yoke. It just kind of, it's all CNC machined and black anodized, just looks a little bit trickier than the standard one. And we will put a jet prime on off switch in there. Here's the rear sets all in kit form. Really nice, simple, not overly complicated, straightforward rear sets that just keep it looking sweet and tidy. Again, Bonamici fuel cap, so we don't have to mess around with the key when we want to put fuel in the bike. Bonamici bars. Again, just a really nice product, really well made. These are a set of lock stops. These are rubber ones that I actually import from Europe myself. And these basically cable tie around the fork leg and restrict the steering lock, which can help protect things in the event of a crash. And it's just an extra layer of protection, really. And by default, Renthal grips. Always recommend the dual compound grips. These are a 32mm grip. They're a little bit fatter than you'd find on most standard things. G176 is what they are. I tend to advise people to use these on most bikes. They're a really comfy grip and really long lasting. And then going on to the protection side of things, GB Racing. Is there anything better? Don't think so. Precision injection molded plastic engine covers. They bolt on, OE fitment, absolutely mega. And then also their bullet sliders that we use. They go on the front engine mounts here and basically help to protect the bike in the event of a crash. Love them, use them for a lot of years in the race paddocks as well. So that's kind of the size of it for the minute. We've got more bits coming. Part of today, the customer bringing all the parts up was to what other bits and pieces he wanted to add to the bike. So there's a few things like we'll put a different clutch lever on it to match the Brembo master cylinder, the TWM remote adjusters, and a few other bits and pieces that we've got on order and waiting for. He's going to go for an L74 quick change rear wheel kit. L74 is a company that's been around quite a few years now, and it just makes it a bit easier for your average track dayer to be able to change their own wheels. Other than that, that's kind of the update on the parts, and we'll keep cracking on the bike build. This is my Milwaukee 1/2-inch impact ratchet. It's one of my favourite tools and it has a few different power settings. It's great for undoing brake caliper bolts, but also when you do them back up, one of the settings, it won't tighten the bolt past 20 Newton meters, which then means you can just wind the bolt in and then do the final torque check with a proper torque wrench. And there we have it. All the brakes off, all the brake lines off, brake mast cylinder off, all the brake lines off the rear, ABS pump all disconnected. We do have some little blanking plugs that we'll put in here. You don't need to put anything in them, and in fact on some bikes it can cause issues if you blank the holes off because the sensor's inside the ABS pump, but we normally blank them off. Just looks neater rather than putting any tape or whatever over there, so we'll put some blanking plugs in that. But basically she is pretty much fairly well stripped down now compared to the road bike that arrived a few days ago. We'll now start thinking about taking the suspension out, putting the new suspension in and starting to build it up with the new trick parts. That will have to wait for part 3. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Keep an eye out for part 3.